Hi everyone. I thought I would continue with speaking about Christian women's rights. And I want to talk about something that happened to me back in the 90s when I had my first baby. And I hope that you enjoy listening, and I hope that you will be proactive in communicating with your local MP and your government, anyone that's representing you in your town, regarding women's rights generally, even if you're not a Christian, but I am going to do this from a Christian point of view. Basically, what happened to me was I was a campaigner against pornography. I think I mentioned that in another video. I was married young. No, I wasn't married young. I was married in my 20s, but I was a young woman and I was expecting my first baby. When I was still campaigning. And basically, and then I had the baby, So this was a newborn baby, basically. And I had written a letter to my local newspaper, to the letters page. And now this is talking about media gagging. This is not a new thing. We know that recently we've had our freedom of speech limited, but I can tell you what happened to me back in the 90s, and it was absolutely shocking, right? There was this nightclub in my town which was renowned for being a bit seedy anyway. And then they started to allow a strip night for men to go to watch women stripping and things. And so I wasn't very happy about this. But even so, I didn't really do anything. But then one day, myself and my friend, we were walking past of an evening. We'd gone out for just a girls' night out. And as we were walking past, we got some harassment from some guys coming out of there. And I was really, really angry. And it was direct. They had just walked out the door and literally started harassing us who happened to be walking past. And I went home and I told my husband about it as well, who wasn't very happy. And anyway, so I wrote a letter to my local newspaper, to the readers. You had a little page where readers could write letters in on a letters page, and I wrote about it and I said exactly what had happened. And I said that I do not want this nightclub in our town. I want it closed down. And I think that there's people trafficking going on in there as well. I'd heard some other things which I can't really prove, but anyway, I think I mainly spoke about the actual incident that happened to me and my friend from these guys that were walking out of there. And lo and behold, it got a lot of attention, this letter. But somebody else was really angry about my letter. And guess who that person was? The local gangster who owned the nightclub. And he threatened the newspaper to sue them for libel for having printed my letter unless something was done about it. So they contacted me and told me this. And then they had to print a public apology in their newspaper about my letter, just little old Mrs. writing into the letters page, right? And I'm in my early 20s at this stage. But so I was really upset. My husband was upset. My husband was actually in the middle of being punished by the cult that he was in for having been involved in politics, because Jehovah's Witnesses don't allow you to be involved in politics in any way. You can be excluded from the community, and which he was. So he's trying to work his way back in, so he can't get involved in anything political. But however, what did happen was, when this public apology was printed, God turned it right around, because the next thing I knew, I got contacted by a television station who asked me if they were going to be doing a live TV debate against pornography, and asked if I would like to come, and other members of my campaign, this was a nationwide campaign actually. So I contacted all the ladies and they all came, and we all travelled on the train. But my problem is that because I had a newborn baby, my son would not take a bottle from anybody, even if it was breast milk. He would not take a bottle. So he's going to have to come with me, right? So, and he fed every 2 hours, and he was always with me. So, so my husband was like, well, if you really must go, I can tell you're really passionate, then you better go. But you're going to have to bring the baby and you're going to have to find somewhere to feed him and that. And now I was a really, really shy girl. I never, ever, I didn't even like breastfeeding in front of my sisters. This is how shy I was, or totally private. And what I will say is the back before this time, about 10 years before, um, my local train station used to have an area on the platform that was for women only, and it had a screen in front of the platform, so you could go in there. And there was also a private toilet in there for girls as well, but it was called a ladies' waiting area. Now they did away with this in the middle 80s because they found that, I think what was happening is that hardly anyone was sitting in there. And when you did sit in there, you were more of a target because you were more likely to be on your own. So a lot of girls felt safer by sitting on the main platform in front of everybody else. So in the end, they did away with this ladies' area. But I did think to myself, oh, that would have been handy because I could have gone in there while I want to feed my baby in private. But now that's gone. There's nowhere except for stinky old train station toilets with nowhere private to go. But anyway, I got on the train, baby's fine. The next thing, I thought, I don't want to sit next to this guy who's looking at page 3, because he had his Sun newspaper out looking at the page 3, and I thought, that's what I'm campaigning against. Do not want to sit there, and if my baby wants feeding, I'm not going to feed in front of him. And so I went and found another seat, and my baby did start screaming frantically, going mad, really wanted to feed. And then I thought, oh no, where am I going to go now? So I took myself right up the corner of the back of the carriage, where I think I've got a bit of a private space, thinking I'm going to have to cover up here and try and sort this out. And but I was really embarrassed. And anyway, the next thing I know, the carriage doors open, and this man walks through who is in religious attire, and I would assume probably a Muslim. And he's walking past, and he's staring at me because I'm feeding my baby, and like as if I'm doing something really naughty, you know. And I'm thinking, this is my child. He's hungry. That's what it's all about. It's for feeding babies, nothing else, right? And I was thinking, this is where women are not being looked after in society, because actually I would have rather have had somewhere private to go, which isn't provided by the National Rail Network. And yeah, so anyway, I go on my way, get onto my journey, and I'm determined now to get to this TV station. I'm really going to give it some when we're going into this debate now. And get into the side room. They said, listen, while we're going on, we can look after your baby for you. That's fine, everything. And we're sitting in this room where all the people are waiting to go on. And the woman comes in. She goes, guess what, everyone? Got good news. Is that this room full of people here, you're all the people that are on one side of the debate against pornography. And we only have 3 people that are going to be in the audience that are against pornography. So this is looking pretty good on your side, right? So I went into the live debate, and every time I put my hand up, I just got ignored. And these 3 people who had hardly anyone with them, they got to do nearly all of the talking. So it was really rigged. And then we had 2 people going head to head. One lady who was on our side, a young girl, very attractive, pretty, very modest young woman, and she's arguing against pornography, going head to head with a porn star who was ripping her to shreds. It was just an awful, awful TV debate. And I look back on it now, and I remember watching it on the TV and thinking, looking from a spectator point of view, you would not have realised that there was actually only 3 people in that audience who were pro-pornography. So it just shows you how the media is very rigged. And I also really said this to highlight the fact that the very beginning of this, my local newspaper was threatened with libel for having printed a letter from me that was about a true event. So I would absolutely be telling young girls today, make sure you do make a stand for what's right, and do not be put off by things like this, because there are bullies out there. There are people with a lot of power and a lot of money who can control the media, but they cannot control us. And as regards to how God feels on these sort of matters, I would like to read this scripture from Ephesians 5:1-7. It's from the NIV. It says here, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a person is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes upon those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with them. And I hope this has touched you and motivated you. And I'm going to also say that it is perfectly okay to get involved in politics, to contact your MP, to contact your local council. Do ask things like, where are private breastfeeding rooms for women? I know that there's a lot of restaurants out there that do support breastfeeding, but however, they seem to be like saying that we're fine with you breastfeeding in public. But I would say that as a shy girl, I'm not saying that everyone has to hide. That's your own view, whatever you want to do. But as a very, very shy girl, I think that we should be promoting women's rights here, and we should be asking for breastfeeding rooms that are for women, that are for people born as women who do not want to feel threatened or intimidated, because this is a very, very private thing. And if you're a young girl, it's even quite daunting for a young girl to actually breastfeed in front of other women. And I think that every person from every religion is going to agree with me on this, that women do deserve some protection and privacy. And I do not apologise for having offended anybody who wasn't born as a woman who wants to enter those areas, but I would really appreciate it if you do respect privacy of young girls who do feel intimidated and threatened. Thank you, and have a blessed week.